It's not it's not that complicated. It just takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of obedience to step out and just pray for somebody, to just commit to praying for somebody, to step out and to give something extra, and I love, just the theme of this is there's a detour, there's a reason why you're in this masseuse's parlor, and there's why you were sick, Randy, at the hospital. There's a reason God puts us in places, and whether we're going to take advantage of that or not is really up to us. Are we willing to see the opportunity in the midst of our chaos, in the midst of our pain? Are we willing to see the chaos and see people and see God's love in the midst of the chaos and go for that instead of just focusing on the storm that we're going through? And it's so much easier said than done, and we all have different areas that we're strong in or not. And so in this whole series, we've been talking about, how do these prisoners of war, people who don't know the Lord, they're not enemies, they're prisoners of war, and they need to be prayed for. We need to offer them love and witness to the truth in their life. They're POWs, and we treat them as such with prayer, offer of love, and witness to the truth. And it really, we don't always have to go out. We can actually open our home, and we can actually be an open home for people. And so hospitality is one of those things that I'm very familiar with. I've worked most of my work, it's either been construction or hospitality for about, I'd say, 90% of my working life before ministry. And when I was a kid, I grew up in Winthrop, Washington, if you know where that's at, on the east side of the Cascades, beautiful place. I worked at Sun Mountain Lodge, which was a 4-diamond resort. Like, it's pretty, like, the guy that invented the gummy bear owns it, and it's his toy. Like, the place didn't make money because of where we were located, but he would fly in on his helicopters and stuff because it was his toy. Like an entire lodge that gave jobs to over 200 people in a town of 800. And it was just like his toy. Like, he sustained the entire community with this place. And so if you've been here a while, you probably are sitting here already scratching your heads like, he worked at a 4-diamond resort? Furthermore, I worked in the restaurant. Like, they trusted me with the face, basically, of their hospitality. And we had this manager, Hector Garibay, who was a Spanish man, played professional soccer. He's like 6'3", and he could never say my name. He's like, K-Love. He's like, K-Love, you cannot come up. You cannot go to the table and say, you all. You all is not appropriate for what we do. And he would get on me all the time, and I just couldn't help it. I grew up in the mountains. Like, I'm a bit of a hick, and so I come up to tables about, how y'all doing tonight? 4-diamond restaurant. Can we get this turned back down a little bit, please? 4-diamond restaurant. How y'all doing? And he would constantly, K-Love, I can't have you doing this. And so, but I mean, I had to wear certain clothes. I had to approach the table with a hand behind my back. I had to serve certain utensils and certain plates and pour certain drinks on one side or the other. I had to present things in a certain way. There was a spiel. I had a little piece of metal that you collect crumbs with. Like, I couldn't even brush crumbs. Like, I had to use this crumb paper and like do this little wave thing. There was like this desire to pour water at least 6 inches above the glass at all times. Like, so that you would start and you would lift it, and just, it was like everything was show, and I had to get good at this. Needless to say, this is not my forte. I'm a bull in a china shop. Like, and I was good at all those things, but like, I never really felt like this was me, like all this extra pomp and circumstance and pretentiousness. And I was like, I like the money, but this just isn't me. And the truth is that what we did, though, is we made people feel special. You have to understand, like, this restaurant had windows that leaned out over the cliff, and then the restaurant itself was built out over the edge of this hill, this cliff, and it had this panoramic view of the sea of windows overlooking the entire valley. You had the Cascades just skyrocketing into the skyline west of us as you were looking out, and it was gorgeous, and the sun would set, and these people are literally eating, looking out, and they could see deer with their baby fawns out there playing, and sometimes you'd see bear run by, and it was just this amazing, amazing vista view in this beautiful place. But what made it 4-diamond was the quality of the service and the food. You see, you wouldn't even have gotten a single diamond just for the view. It was about how we treated people, how we embraced people, how we made people feel welcome and special that got our rating. And it was always a big deal. When AAA would come in, or the people who would assess what we were doing, it was always a big deal. I usually wasn't allowed to work those days. Somehow I found I got time off the weekend they came in. I wonder why. The last thing they wanted, the AAA 4 diamond guy coming in is getting a "how y'all doing tonight?" 2 diamonds. Can't advertise that. But it was about how you made someone feel in their experience was much of the rating. And the food and the wine pairings and all that was important, but really how you made someone feel was really where the rating was at. Hebrews 13, 1-2 says, "Let brotherly love continue. Do not neglect to show hospitality to strangers, for thereby some have entertained angels unaware." Hospitality is a very, very important thing in Hebrew culture. The Jews consider hospitality kind of a divine attribute, something that they follow after Abraham's experience. And in Genesis 18, we see Abraham. Abraham is met by God and 2 angels. And it says in verse 1 of Genesis 18, "The Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, and he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. And he lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men were standing in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and he bowed himself on the earth and said, 'O Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree while I bring a morsel of bread that you may refresh yourselves. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to me, your servant.' So they said, 'Do as you have said.' And Abraham went quickly into the tent to Sarah and said to her, 'Quick, get 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes.' And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, a tender and good calf, and he gave it to a young man who prepared it quickly. And he took curds and milk and the calf and all that he had prepared, and he set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate." What the Jews look at as hospitality is that Abraham, it was under a tree. A lot of business was done in these nomadic cultures at this time. Business and the man of the village, they would rest, they would sit under the tree, and it's where the shade was. It's where all the people with wealth and importance would sit during the day. And so Abraham has his tent under the tree, all his servants, all his livestock. By this point, he is 100 years old, and he has acquired quite a bit of wealth. And he is sitting under the tree with everyone working for him around him. And yet the Lord shows up and he offers him shelter. "Come stay in my tent. Come sit with me here. I'm going to get water to wash your feet." And then he also offers him food and something to drink. And these 3 things, shelter, food, and something to drink, became kind of this Hebrew expectation that the Jews expect that when a stranger comes into their midst, that this is what you always offer. You always offer shelter, a place of safety and comfort, a place where someone can just rest. And that you offer food, you offer nourishment so that they can get strengthened for their journey ahead. And you offer drink because it brings refreshment and it kind of brings just a hope for the day. They lived in the Middle East. It said it was the heat of the day. Getting something to drink in the heat of the day is very important. And these 3 things have spiritual parallels for us too. Are we a people who, when we see the opportunity to love on people, are we someone who's safe? Are we a shelter for people? Am I saying go back to a couple messages where we talked about reaching inside and really assessing ourselves and how we interact with others. Am I a safe person? Is how I communicate, how I come across, the way I live my life. Am I someone that's safe for someone to leave their wounds open in front of? Am I someone who's safe that someone could share their fears? Am I someone that brings comfort and security? Am I someone who can actually help someone be at rest in the midst of their storm? When they come to me, it feels like they're sitting under a big tree in the heat of the day, finding rest. Hospitality, a lot of hospitality has to do with, do we really make people feel like they can just rest? Do our lives and our words produce an environment where people can just come and be and rest in our presence? The drink, the refreshment, I see the parallel in the scriptures of how the joy of the Lord that is our strength, but this idea that you drink something and it just kind of brightens your day. Are we people who bring joy and hope in our conversations and how we engage people? Do we ask questions of people that help them see the good in their life so they can actually be thankful and take joy in where they're at, regardless of the things they want to talk about? Are we the type of people that when people come into our presence in our midst, that we actually bring refreshment to their soul by the way we speak about our life, our King, and our circumstances? Do people find themselves overjoyed when they leave us, or do they feel like they've been drained? And the last would be the nourishment, the food, strength to move on. Do we give people strength to get through their circumstance? Do we bring value to people wherever they're at in their life when they encounter us? Or do we pile on more burdens? Do we pile on more things that weigh them down? Do we speak in such a way that we can gently, through whether it be asking questions or asking for permission, offer up maybe a solution if they would want one, to where we can actually help someone move forward? Are we a person that feeds people with truth? Are we a people that actually, when people come to us, they go, man, not only I feel like I'm safe here and I'm at rest, and I get spoken life into me, encouraged, and I feel overjoyed. I'm always excited when I'm in this person's presence. And my goodness, if I have an issue, I always know some of the best wisdom and insight and guidance comes from this individual. The hospitality had a lot more to do with than just giving someone a meal. It had to do with how you treated them. You see, the word hospitality comes from the Greek word hospice, which means to make someone a guest. To make someone a guest. And its definition is that to be hospitable, the definition is to receive one in goodwill. To receive somebody, to just receive someone in goodwill. It says nothing about the state of who they are or their intentions. It says, will you receive them in goodwill? A great definition by some French guy, I couldn't pronounce his name, so I just left it out. But he said, the virtue of a great soul, hospitality is the virtue of a great soul that cares for the whole universe through the ties of humanity. Hospitality is the virtue of a great soul that cares for the whole universe through the ties of humanity. It's interesting as we look at the word hospitality, and right there in front of our faces, if you take the state of being out of it, is the word hospital. It's the word hospital. It's the English root of hospitality. Hospital, all that means is shelter for the needy. Are we people who are a shelter for the needy? Are we a church, or is our home a place that is a shelter for those who have needs? The church should always be a place, or rather we should always be a people where we're a shelter for a needy, a place where people are received in goodwill, where the needy and the broken and the hurt and the outcast and the lonely can come and feel safe. They can get nourishment and strength. They can find refreshment and joy in our presence. It's interesting that hospice isn't the deepest root word for hospitality. The word hostis is, and it means enemy. Hospitality, in its purest, most powerful form, is making friends out of your enemies. To make a guest, to make a someone of honor, to bless someone who was formerly your enemy, to invite them in with goodwill, and to shelter, nourish, and refresh them in such a way that someone who was formerly your enemy is now your friend. Hospitality is so much more than just a service industry that we've all encountered. We can feel it, you know? You can feel good hospitality, and you can feel hospitality that's poor, and I've experienced it many times. My wife and I, on our first anniversary, I made reservations to a nice restaurant. I think there was a 3-diamond restaurant in Chelan overlooking the lake, and I was going to have them put flowers in there, and I had like certain things set up that I wanted for us to come, a little private room and all this. And we show up, and no one had called us, but they had had some renovations done, and they had lost our reservation on time. We show up, and there's nothing there, and the hostess at the table said, well, I'm sorry, you're going to have to wait an hour, but we can get you a table just right here. And we drove 3 hours to have dinner at this place, and I was pretty upset. And I remember leaving, going, no, we'll get dinner somewhere else. And we found a pizza place and just sat down and had, just really disappointing pizza for our first year anniversary. I remember just being frustrated. My mom asked the next day, she goes, how was it at this place in Chelan? I was like, Mom, it was awful. They lost their reservation and they made no accommodations, and she treated me like I was a burden to them. And I said, I've never done this, but I'm leaving a 1-star Yelp review. Never done it. Only one I've ever left. So I left that Yelp review. And I went in length as to what had happened. I was like, no, this ain't okay. Like, I've worked in the industry. This is not okay. The worst part was my mom called the manager. Do you know what it's like being a 30-year-old man and having your mother call a restaurant because her little boy didn't have a good experience? So I get a call from this manager. Of this restaurant going like, I talked to your mom, and I'm like, oh my God. This is my childhood all over again. You should play my 7-year-old more on the soccer team. He needs more time. Mom, stay out of it. I'll earn my time. So my mom calls the manager calls me, and he sets up this date. We were coming back in a few months to see my parents, and so we come back the second time, right? And we come back, and he meets us there personally. The manager meets us there personally, and he takes us into this special area where we have the view of the lake and this great big fireplace, and there's no one else amongst us in our midst at this time. And he says that here's what we're going to do. I'm going to comp everything. I'm comping everything, and I made sure my best waitress is on tonight. She's the one I trust with everything. She is only waiting on you this entire time, and she will have no other tables. And then he came back to the table over and over again throughout the night to make sure everything we had was good and everything was going well. And it was a fantastic experience. That's what hospitality does. That's what good love does to people. It gives them a fantastic experience that they'll never forget. And I went back on Yelp and I edited my review. And I left some of the part before, and then I told what the manager did. You know, see, that's what God's love does to us, is it doesn't erase our past or what's happened, but all of a sudden it brings this new life and a new story that people get to see. Instead of us being a 1-star individual that people encounter, they get to start to encounter a 5-star, a 4-diamond individual who loves so well because we've been loved so well, because we've seen and received the gift of God, the free gift of life, that now we start to just see people as opportunities to just love on them, for our hearts and our hands and our homes to be opened up so people can experience the love of God, that they could have a fantastic experience, that they could have the best scallops of their life, the sweetest wine, the warmest fire, the prettiest view, because we have given hospitality, because we have gone out of our way to act and live in such a way that we start to make friends out of our enemies. Is that not the life you want to encounter? Is that not the type of people you want to see? Is that not also the life that you kind of hunger inside? That's how I want to live my life, so that people encounter me, they go, man, I've never met anybody like Dylan. And I feel like I walked in today a little unsure of myself, and I feel like I'm a rock star. Like I have purpose. I have things in front of me I can hope for. I have encouragement inside of me that's giving me strength to move forward. And he kept talking about this Jesus that's done all this for him. And I'm just overwhelmed by the goodness of God in his life and how he treated me, that I got to have some of that. You see, if you go to a 4-diamond hotel, a 4-diamond restaurant, you should always have that kind of experience. And if people run into us, they should always have that kind of 4-diamond experience of what it's like to have the elite of love that's poured out in this world. Something they've never seen or never had before. What they don't want is a y'all man who just does what he does because it is who I am. Because that was my attitude towards Sun Mountain, is, look, this is who I am. This is where I was raised. People need to understand me because this is me. This is my town. I can see my house from this restaurant, and they can deal with the y'alls because that's who I am. And the truth is that we all do this. Instead of giving people our best and serving them in such a way that gives them 4-diamond service, a 4-diamond love that blows them away, we go, well, it's just who I am. Can't teach a new dog old tricks. I had this happen in my childhood. I had this go on. I just have this understanding. I have this personality type. And so you just have to deal with who I am. That's bull crap. That is bull crap. Jesus never once said, hey, come as you are, and I'll just do different things, but you're pretty much stuck as the piece of junk you are. You know what? I'm going to give you a free pass to treat people like crap because of the way you were treated in your childhood. No, he said, I'm going to give you power to be a new creation. I'm going to erase what's been done to you by the power of my blood. Yeah, you'll remember it, but it will not affect you, because when you put your eyes and your trust on me, when you start to rest in me and let my truth override your experiences, what you feel will be my love, and no longer the experiences of your past will have the weight and the authority to pull you back down and start to treat other people from a lower place. You can actually run. Abraham was 100 years old. That's an old dude. And it said he ran and then he hurried because 3 strangers showed up, and he got his best lamb. He got his best milk and curds. He got a bowl to wash their feet. This is the man of the town doing everything he could. And then it said when they were eating, he stood there at attention. He was giving God 4-diamond service because he was giving God the best he had. Do we give God the best we have? Are we a people that actually look at every opportunity in our life and go like, man, like, I just really want to give God the best I have because I actually understand all that he's given me. You see, God had given Abraham a promise, and because of that promise, Abraham knew it was such a small thing to give him the best he had. And that promise he'd be a mighty nation. Children like sand on a seashore, stars in the sky. And because of this promise that he had not yet even tasted the beginning of, but because it was spoken, he's already willing to give the best that he has. God has spoken so much of what he wants to do in our life, but so often we are waiting for God to do something before we'll give him anything, let alone our best. You don't give 4-diamond service after they tip you. You give it because it's who you are and it's your reputation and it's what they came to expect. Do we love because we're expecting someone to give something back? Or are we loving because it's who we are and we know what the world is expecting of people who say they're the children of God? Fun fact, way off topic right now, and yet dead on. Where are we? We always need to be a hospital that never lacks the itty. Hospitality. We never need to lack the itty, which is it is the essence, it is the state of being. It's not a place, but hospitality takes what is a hospital and makes it a state of being. We can never lack the itty. We must be the hospital that is always hospitable. We must always be people who are looking to be a shelter for the broken and scared, and to offer food to the weak and weary, and to give refreshing drink to the hopeless and dry, so that we can make friends of our enemies. Are you willing to break bread with the dead? Are you willing to break bread with the leper in society? The one that no one else wants to talk to, the one that you don't even want to touch or be around? Are we willing to break bread with those who have yet to know Jesus, who might think differently, act differently, and even judge us for what we believe? Are we willing to break bread with them? Are we willing to do life and show some hospitality to those who really need to encounter the love of God? Are we willing to open up our homes to these people? Too often my home is a place, it's my sanctuary. It's my place of isolation. It's where I get to be me and no one gets to see it and no one gets to interfere. It's my place. I've done ministry. I've worked hard. I'm going home. I'm shutting it off. Don't bother me. This job's tiring sometimes. Life is exhausting almost all the time, right? And we look so often, I don't think I'm alone, that we look at home as being this place I just get to unplug and just like not acknowledge a lot of the other things going on around me in other people's lives. We see home as our safety, but not a place for others' safety. We see home as a place where we get nourishment and food, but where we don't have to share that nourishment and food with others. We see home as a place where we can kick off our shoes and relax and have a drink and hope in whatever our dreams are, and yet not have to share or worry about others. Not all of us, not all the time, and I'm not like this all the time either, but it's the nature of our selfishness that we all have. So this is our default, especially when we're overwhelmed. This is our default. And so we want to go here, we want to do this, and we can get And we can just get completely overwhelmed with this idea of opening up our home to be hospitable people, to be a people of hospitality, to invite people into our homes, invite people into our lives. And it can just seem really overwhelming at times. And maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's much more practical. For a lot of us, I think maybe we look at our homes and we compare it against other people's homes. We look at our homes. My mom is Martha Stewart Light. Like she cooking, decorating. It's like she actually owns multiple stores based on that concept. Like that's what she does. And so like hosting in my family, like being hospitable was a regular thing. My parents often will throw parties for 20 to 30 people monthly just to have friends over. And my mom will cook everything. And she'll hire entertainment to come, and she'll do all sorts of things. And they'll have parties outside and big barbecues, and it's just ongoing like awesomeness. Come to my house, you might get hot dogs. Am I right? Yeah. I'm my dad's son. Gonna make you some mac and cheese? I'm real good at making mac and cheese. Got a special recipe. Lots of cheese and butter. That's all it is. You know, we can look at our house like my house is too messy, it's too small, it's just not, it doesn't fit right, it's out of the way, my neighborhood's not nice. When we look at our food, like I don't really have the money for the food that people are going to want to like come over. I'm not a very good cook, and so like being hospitality, we think of hospitality as like, how can we offer things to people? How can we offer something to someone? When the truth is that hospitality has more to do with who we are than anything we have to offer. When I was in Africa 6 years ago, and we were over there doing missions over there in Kenya, the family that took us in had lost half their children to unclean water. And they were living in mud huts in the school in their town. None of the children had clothes, and the school had no roof and 2.5 walls. And we show up into this for lunch this day, and what they had done is they had scrambled their money together, and they had rented a big white tent, and they had taken their best chickens, and they had gone down to the market and got fish from the lake down in the area that they lived in, and they brought all this up, and they all stood around the edges, and they had all of us, these families, had us go through and eat as much as we wanted, and if there was anything left, they would have a little with us. See, hospitality isn't about how much you got or how great it is, but it's about the station of your heart. Are you willing to give your best to someone so they can experience Four Diamond lifestyle? Can they experience the love of God in such a way that they leave rave reviews about you and your King? And it doesn't matter if you're good at cooking. It doesn't matter if your house isn't perfect, but is it open and available for people to come and find refreshment, to find shelter and to be nourished, to find encouragement, to find hope, to find joy, and to find a place of safety that they can be who they are and not be judged and actually get loved on in a real powerful way. And it doesn't take food, and it doesn't take nice furniture, and it doesn't take entertainment to do that. It takes hearts willing to go and not just touch the leper, but let the leper in. Your home is your hospital. And you are the surgeon. And your scalpel is the Holy Spirit. You get to choose how much life you bring when you encounter people. You get to choose how much of God you're going to let out and really show people what they're worth. Not after they speak kindly of you, but before they ever give you a tip of any kind. This week at Starbucks, yesterday, actually, like I said, I was having a hard time writing this message, and I just wasn't getting anywhere, and I was just dealing with some distractions and some stuff, and my peace had been kind of robbed this week. Stupid things, nothing critical. Like, I'm not having a hard time. It's just life gets in your head sometimes, and you start looking at your problems instead of Jesus, and all of a sudden little problems start collecting with other little problems, and all of a sudden you're just anxious and overwhelmed, and I was just irritable. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there was one day this week I didn't get into the Word because I was irritable. That was literally my great grand excuse. I'm upset right now, I'm not getting the Word. And I felt guilty. And so the next day, and then I was like, why do I feel guilty, God? You're not making me guilty. I'm feeling guilty for some sort of thing in my own head. And so I go down to Starbucks. I'm just dealing with stuff inside me. And it's Thursday. Or Friday? Was it Friday? Oh, it might have been Friday. And I don't have a message prepared yet because I'm just dealing with me all week. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm really trying to focus, and this homeless man walks in, and he is talking to himself loudly. And he smells from 10 feet away. And then he starts talking to me. Can you not see I have headphones in? I have 3 books out and I am writing. Take off my headphones. What's that? What are you reading? The thing inside me, I was being honored. It's like, it's a big freaking Bible. What does it look like? Like that's not what I said. Come on. That's what I felt like saying. Don't act like I'm the only one that has those moments where you feel like saying one thing and then you say something much nicer. I was like, oh, I'm reading the Bible. Well, what you reading? Currently Isaiah 41. What are you doing? Oh, and he started just talking nonsense that made no sense. And I looked, I got up off my chair, I just went and shook his hand and said, hey, I'm Caleb, what's your name? He goes, my name's Brad. He's an older man, probably in his late 50s. And I said, Brad, would you come sit down with me? I was like, why don't you just come sit with me? So he comes and he sits with me, and he's talking, and he says he's coming down, and he's having a really hard time. And I said, Brad, can I just, he's talking about how cold it was last night. You know, it was single digits, and he's like, it was a really rough night last night, and I'm coming down, and I got a lot of things going on. And I said, can I just get you a cup of coffee? That'll help warm you up. You mind if I do that? And he goes, sure. So I go buy him coffee, I sit down, and we just start talking. And when I mean we, I mean him. Like, I didn't say anything. He's just, and it's all over the place, man. Like, I couldn't tell you half of what Brad told me on Friday morning. I'm just listening. I'm just being a safe place for him to just share. And all I'm getting back, I was like, man, I can't even imagine. Man, I'm so sorry. That's got to be tough. That's got to be tough. And he's been a part of a cult, and he's still believed in those beliefs. He's not in a place in his mind or in a season of his life to where the truth needs to be preached here, right? Like he's crying about him missing this cult that he's been a part of for so many years. And so I just decided, you know what, Brad, can I pray for you? And he goes, that would be great. And I grab him, his hands are black and they're just soiled and greasy. And I grab his hands and I pray for him. He starts to snot, and I get up and I come over and I just hug him. You just hug him and hold him for a minute, and he just snots all over me. And I just prayed the simple truth of God's love in the gospel of Jesus Christ over him. And I prayed for what he needed, which was he needed to be able to put up boundaries in his life. It's what he told me he needed. I asked one question, what would you want God to do for you? He's like, I need boundaries because I want to help people so bad that I keep putting myself in these situations. That's why I keep getting hurt. He goes, I know that I shouldn't be doing any of these things. I don't want to do these drugs, but I keep putting myself in situations to help others, and I have nothing, and then I end up hurting. So I prayed for boundaries, and I prayed the blood and the love of Jesus over him. I shared the gospel through a very simple prayer, and he snotted all over me. That was it. Just a little bit of hospitality, just a little bit of me not letting grumpy me ruin a moment and an opportunity. Hospitality is who you are. It's not necessarily what you do. Hospitality is who you are. It's not the home you have or the things you can offer. Hospitality is who we are and who we're called to be everywhere we go. You don't have to be in your home to be hospitable, but your home should be the greatest epicenter of your hospitality. But you don't have to be in your home to be hospitable. Wayne Cadero is he's the pastor of New Hope Church in Honolulu, Hawaii. It's a church of over 14,000 people, and they've planted over 108 churches internationally. There's a story of Wayne where he's at a conference where he's the keynote speaker, but no one knows that yet, and they're all at these round tables in this big venue, and he's somewhere stateside, and no one really knows who he is, and he realizes that the coffee came out late, and people are wanting coffee, but there's not enough coffee thought, so he goes to where the coffee carafes are, because they haven't all been divvied out to all the tables. He just grabs a bunch of them, he just starts walking around, and he's filling up coffee cups, and no one knows, everyone thinks he's a waiter, right? Everyone thinks Wayne's a waiter. And he's just like, oh, good, you want some coffee? Awesome, coffee. And everyone's like, oh, thank you so much. And all of a sudden the spotlight is like, Wayne Cadero goes to his table, and he's not there. And some of the people at his table knew he was, and they pointed, and there he is with his back. And all of a sudden he's on the spotlight, and they're like, our keynote speaker, Wayne Cadero. And he's in there pouring coffee like, just a minute. Because hospitality doesn't know just a venue. It's who he was. So Wayne's a man of caring for people and loving for people. And it doesn't matter about his status. It doesn't matter the reason why he's there. It doesn't matter what the environment was like. Wayne was going to serve because he saw a need, and he felt like it was good to get up and be hospitable. They had wait staff, but they were hurting to get things done. See, hospitality meets the needs of the people. It doesn't just focus on food and shelter and drinks and the natural. It focuses on the needs of the individual in the moment, to bring that safety and that refreshment and that nourishment that gives strength in the moment for what the person needs. Real hospitality meets the needs of the individual, because hospitality is always trying to hear where people are at and hear what they're going through and look to see where they can step in and serve in a mighty way. John 12, the most amazing story. It's told 3 times, both in Matthew, Mark, and John. And Mary is the sister of Martha and of Lazarus. And if you know the Bible, she's the one that sat at Jesus' feet and just stayed in his presence while Martha serves, anxiously served. And so here they are 6 days before Jesus would be turned over and then beaten and crucified. And he's already raised Lazarus from the dead, their brother, just a couple weeks earlier. And it says 6 days before the Passover, Jesus therefore came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Jesus had raised from the dead. So they gave a dinner for him there. They gave the dinner at a man named Simon the leper's house. Jesus isn't hosting this party. He's at a leper's house with a dead man in mixed company. And Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with them at the table. Mary therefore took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard and anointed the feet of Jesus and wiped her feet with her hair. And the house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. And you need to understand the context of this moment in their culture. This pure nard, this perfume, was only to be used to dedicate things for holy purposes. And a pound of it is worth a year's wages. That would be about $55,000 in today's society. And she comes up, and you have to understand, so it would be all men, and they're lounging at a table. And that time, they didn't have chairs and tables, so there would be this short little table about 6 to 8 inches off the ground, and they'd be reclining in on one arm, reaching with another hand to eat, and their feet would be kicking out behind them. They'd be all in this big kind of rectangular circle thing, everyone lounging, all the men lounging with the women waiting on them. And she comes up to Jesus, and she breaks this alabaster jar, pound full of nard, and she pours it on his head and anoints him for his burial. And then she moves down to his feet, and she pours it on his feet, and she undoes her hair. You see, in their society at that time, a woman with undone hair, when a woman would pull her hair out, it would say that it was a sign that she was loose, even a prostitute. Because that's how prostitutes would allure men on the street. They would let their hair down because it was considered a woman's glory, was the beauty of her hair. Her hair was one of the things that actually signified her beauty. And for her to take her hair and undignify herself in front of all these men and get down and kneel down on her knees and start to wipe Jesus' dirty, dusty feet with her hair, the symbol of her beauty, to undignify herself in front of all these men was socially unacceptable. And she's wiping his feet with her hair and cleaning his feet. And it says the whole house is just, it's intoxicated with this perfume. It's just filled with the perfume. And they start to grumble at her. And Judas goes, why wasn't this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor? And he said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief and having charge of the money bag. He used to help himself to whatever was in it. And Jesus said, leave her alone so that she may keep it for the day. She has kept it for the day of my burial. For the poor you always have, but you will not always have me. It then says in Matthew that wherever the gospel is shared, she will be shared with it. She gave the best of what she had. But what she started with was kneeling down before the Lord. You have to visualize the circumstance, even though it doesn't say it, to understand that she knelt down before the Lord and she blessed him and anointed him for the purpose that he came for, which is to die for you and me. And she knelt down. And what's interesting is in the Hebrew, the word barak, the same word used when Abraham ran to God and fell before him, the word is barak. And it means to kneel, but it's also the very same word that the Old Testament uses to bless. So that when God came and he sent his son, he kneeled before us to bless us. He submitted himself to death on a cross to bless us. And Abraham, understanding just the power of kneeling and the connection with blessing, as he submits himself before these 3 men, kneeling, a 100-year-old man getting on his creaky old knees to bless them by kneeling before them. The number 1 on your outline. The first diamond of 4-diamond hospitality is to kneel in service and bless others. The first part of being hospitable is a willingness to kneel before others, to humble yourself, submit before others so that they can be blessed. And the very act of kneeling and submitting and humbling yourself is a blessing to someone else. Number 2 is to be a shelter of safety and rest. Am I willing to kneel before people to serve them where they're at for their purposes? Am I going to be someone that shows up in a way that I'm a person of safety and rest, where people can be comfortably who they are with me? Last night, my wife and I had to challenge our 2 homestay girls. As some of you know, we have 2 Vietnamese teenagers that live with us, and one of them is a lesbian. And there's been some very interesting activities going on in our house, and we're starting to suspect that there was inappropriate behavior happening. We had to confront them on it last night. And as I'm confronting, and I was getting a little intense across the table with these 2 young girls about what's going on in our home and how that's not going to happen under our roof. And I could tell that the one girl, the younger one, is she's trying to defend herself, and I told her just to stop, which made me more amped. And the other one is just stone cold staring at me. The one that I know likes other girls is stone cold staring at me with intense eyes, and she's locked in, and it is not a nice look. And she's staring at me, and I start telling her, my wife and I are talking to them, and I said, look, here's the deal, is we love you guys. We love you guys, and what I need you to understand is that regardless of however you live your life, however you choose, whether we agree with it or not, it is not the thing that dictates whether we love you or not, or whether we hold you as valuable or not. But this activity will not happen in our home. And at that point, her eyes lowered down to the ground and she started staring at the floor. And I said, look, I need you guys to understand that if you say that nothing is happening, then I'm going to treat you like adults. And because I value you and I value your opinion, I want you to know that you're free, because I'm not going to run this house with fear. I trust you from this day forward, that I will never suspect, I will not let the thought come into my mind if I see you together that something is happening that we discussed here tonight that should not happen. I said, I trust you and you're valuable. And my wife spoke the same thing. And the one girl who likes other girls, she has her eyes at the floor. And I looked at her and I said, sweetheart, what's on your mind? I need to hear from you right now. And she looked up and she started to cry. And she said, when I told my parents how I felt, they said I was too young and I didn't know myself and that I didn't know what I was doing, and to just suppress it and just shut up about it. She's like, no one's ever told me that they would love me as I am. Her whole life has been conditioned on her impressing her parents. It's half of why she's in America right now. So I didn't have to agree with her lifestyle, but I could still give her value and show who she was and make my home a safe place for her to have open conversations. And I didn't have to condone her activity to do it. The truth is half what I just shared with you from my perspective was a lot of my wife, because I was definitely starting to feel the heat under the collar. But are we a place of safety for people, no matter what their walk of life is, that if they really get to know us, they can actually be open and honest about what they believe and what they feel, and actually find someone who's going to care for them and see the value of who they are because they're made in the image of God, not because they align with our political view, our lifestyle, or any of the other things that we hold personally valuable that God has not dictated His love upon. Third, to bring refreshment by sharing joy and hope with them. Are you a person that's fun to be around? Do you speak life? Do you share testimonies of God's goodness? Do you talk about the positive things in life? Or are you Debbie Downer from SNL? Oh, Debbie. Oh, that was such a great game. Well, the refs just really messed it up. Oh man, that was a great concert. It was kind of loud. Always finding the negative, the black line on the beautiful cloud that's actually a sunset. Are you someone that speaks life into people, that when they need hope, to actually point them in a direction that they can actually find hope in their circumstance, that you can speak of the potential of the future that God has for them, that you see in them, even if it's just in the natural, you can pull out qualities that maybe they're struggling in confidence in, that you can actually be the refreshing drink of water that they need when the hope was run dry and all they've been dealing with is the dry thoughts of their own self-judgments and condemnation and self-doubt. But you can actually speak what you see, or at least what God sees in all of us, and just start to pour some water on their parched heart and let joy and hope arise. And the fourth is nourish them with the truth that strengthens and helps satisfy their needs. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. You see that sometimes the best way to share the goodness and the truth of God's gospel is not to hit them with the gospel, but actually figure out what they need and to help them meet that need, because all of a sudden walls start to come down. Now you can talk about the real truth that's actually going to impact their life forever. Sometimes you have to help someone through something that you don't think really matters, because it matters to them and it's about their experience. And if they experience goodness from you, they might receive the real goodness within you. You're willing to bless someone in a way, in something that matters to them, even if it doesn't necessarily look like kingdom. And again, I'm not talking about compromising our values and our faith and what we believe in our morals. I'm talking about helping people with just natural needs, things that they want, even if it's first world problem stuff, helping people so that they actually believe you're someone that helps them feel satisfied in life and strengthened to move forward. Because when you start to do that, people start to open up their hearts about their relationships with each other and their family and about their questions about God. When we can actually give them what they want instead of what we know they need for them at the beginning. Being hospitable takes a little bit of courage, it takes a little bit of sacrifice, but it's really simple. It's really simple. And Jesus in Matthew 25 said, you do any of these things, a cup of cool water, a meal, a welcoming of someone, visiting someone in prison, you do any of these things to the least of these, and you have done it unto me, and I will welcome you into your rest. I will welcome you into my kingdom. And Jesus literally talks about shelter, food, and water. And he's speaking the Jewish context of hospitality. Share a story and we'll close. I know we're a little long. You guys had good testimonies tonight, so it's your fault. I'm going to blame this one on you. There's a man that died in 2015 here in Spokane by the name of Noel Campbell. He was a single dad of 6 kids. His wife passed away when he was 40 years old. And he raised all 6 kids by himself while being a pastor and working full-time to provide for his family. And over that time, Noel opened his house up to thousands of other children. But there was 4 or 5 men particularly, young men in high school with troubled backgrounds and broken homes, that he invited every morning into his home just to pray and to love on. And one of those men would share about how so often they would all fall asleep, the boys would fall asleep, and they'd wake up to Noel still praying at the breakfast table at 6 a.m. And they'd pretend that they didn't fall asleep, but he always knew what happened. And eventually he turned over the youth ministry to them, and these young men led their peers in the hundreds out of Noel's house, where kids were pouring out into the porch and into the backyard and in the street to hear the gospel. Because one man opened up his home to love on some youth. He opened up his home to pray, to be a safe place, to encourage and speak life. He opened up his heart to share truth with them, to guide them to who they were meant to be, who God had called them to be. One of those men was Wayne Cadero. One of those men planted 108 churches and currently leads almost 15,000 people in their faith in Hawaii. One of the other men was Joe Whitwer from Life Center, who has led thousands of people to Christ over the last 30 years here in Spokane and has planted well over 20 churches by loving on people the same way he was loved on. Because one man who had no time and no resources said, it doesn't matter what I have on the outside, it matters what I have on the inside, and that's the Holy Spirit, and I'm going to share it with 4 boys. And there's another pastor, I can't remember, in California with another mega church, and who knows how many churches. There's a good chance that over 200 churches have been planted because one single father of 6 kids going paycheck to paycheck said, I don't care. I'm opening up my home. I'm going to live a life of hospitality. And I'm going to disciple some young men that need some hope. Is your home open? Is my home open to let the leper come and linger? To come and find some shelter, to come and get fed, to come and get refreshed, and to hear the truth of what God says about them and what He wants to do in their life. You don't have to have a biblical degree. You don't have to have things. You just have to have a willingness to open your heart, release your hands, open your home, and just be hospitable to people when they come in. And God will use you to change nations. Open your home. We all have one. It's a rarity in the world today, but yet in our country, we all have one. Will we open our homes to see Jesus do what only He can do? 4-diamond service as we break bread with the dead. Let's pray. Father, forgive me for how often I go home and I shut down because it's my selfish place to hide. Forgive me for how many times I look at what I have in the natural and think I have nothing to offer when I have the King of the universe who speaks life into existence as a fire on the inside, just waiting to spread and to bring hope and life to whoever will be released to. Father, forgive me for being fearful that I would even be hurt. You showed me time and time again how much you have protected my home when I bring people who on the outside seem dangerous and unkind, that literally seem like the enemy, and yet they have become friends. And yet I still hold on to that fear when the opportunity arises to open my home. Lord, I just ask tonight that we would just be challenged by the Holy Spirit, not by any of my passion or my words, but Holy Spirit, however you want to work in each one of our lives, to one, be hospitable wherever we go in every circumstance, and to really question and ask you to press upon our hearts, how do we open our home to the lost and to the broken, to those who might need a little encouragement, a little nourishment, and a little safety in their life. That we would be a people that offer life, that we make friends of our enemies. Jesus, you can do this in each and every one of us, regardless of where we are tonight. We can start by just being hospitable, kneeling before you, blessing you with a submitted life, and you will do the rest. All we have to do is bless you with a submitted life. And so, Lord, I'm asking that you would do that. Press that upon our heart. Each one of us is how that looks. I want to challenge all of us tonight to think about these two things. How can I be more of a 4-diamond person everywhere I go? Because I don't need to do it in my home, but also specifically, how Lord, does the Lord want to open up your home to be a place of safety, nourishment, and refreshment? And to write it down tonight. Don't leave here tonight and go home and not think about it, but write it down. How can you be a place where people get 4-diamond hospitality? Let God have His way. All right. God bless you guys. We'll see you all next week for the conclusion of the series.